On this episode of Turning Point Tactics, I'm interviewing Bart, the UK team captain for the WTC. We talk about how he managed to go through that team process, leading the team to a successful second place. And we'll also talk about the next meta, upcoming sort of teams, a discussion about general tips and tactics, and finish on a really useful tactical tip. So if you're a subscriber, make sure to stay right to the end so you get a tactical tip for how you can improve your kill team straight away. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Killteam 40k YouTube channel focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm here to help give you the tips and tricks to elevate every part of your kill team experience. So no matter if you're a casual or a competitive player, there should be something here for you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, there's a few ways you can go about doing so. You can join the Patreon, where you get access to members only Discord, Patreon priority questions, early access to content, exclusive content, and tournament awards. Or if you find yourself buying Killteam goodies or hobby supplies, you can use one of our affiliate links in the description below, or discount codes with Crossfire Games and GG Prints. We're always keen to hear your thoughts and feedback, so don't leave that comment box empty. Let us know what you think. Once again, thanks for your support, and with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, this evening I am joined by the amazing Bart. You've heard him before, but it's the first time you're actually seeing him live on the channel. So Bart this year was the team captain for the whole of the UK contingent that went out to the WTC and managed to absolutely smash my record from the year before. So an absolute pleasure to have you on the channel, Bart. How are you doing this evening?
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thanks, Ryan, for having me back. I'm absolutely thrilled and buzzing, and yeah, I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So I'm pretty high off the success, I think, of WTC. Like going into it, I was very much in the mentality of
This,
yeah, we
this
were
one.
so close, so close. And I was very much in the mentality of like, if we can get a podium, then we've done really well. Like I was like, if we can get a podium, we're doing really well. And there was a moment where we got locked in. I was like, we're getting first or second, and I was like, this is like crazy. Whatever happens. And then we were 3 VP off. 3 VP is all we needed for that team to get to steal first place. So could not have like been closer at the end, which was awesome, wasn't it? To be fair. So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit tonight about WTC, a little bit tonight about Novitiates, new edition probably, and get some thoughts on where you think that's going. We'll try and pick your tactical brain to see how much we can pull out of it. I guess for anyone that is like missed the previous episodes where I haven't introduced you before, or hasn't played in the UK community somehow, or I don't know, doesn't know who you are, could you potentially just give a little intro and just explain who is Bart and why do you play Killteam?
So, hello, I'm Bart, and I play Killteam because I'm a massive nerd. So I've been playing competitive games for as long as I can remember. So I guess like that this game was supposed to be a break from a previous competitive game I played, not to be mentioned on this channel, and it turned out to be another competitive game. So yeah, here I am.
You just fall into it. It's just a natural thing for you to find these really competitive games,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I guess.
but yeah, it means to be awesome. You've been pretty consistently strong in the UK community, I think, for the last 3 years, 4 years. I'd say I'm trying to think how long you've been playing Kill Team for now. It all feels like a bit of a blur, but I think for a lot of people, they're going to be interested to know, what because okay, so I'm going to spoil the surprise a little
But
bit.
maybe before we get to that, because you mentioned that it's all becoming a blur, and you don't remember how long I have played this game for. We actually do you remember we actually met on Discord during lockdown playing KT18 before we actually met years later
Yeah,
in person. And yeah, we played on TTS in the very first team, and then yeah.
we did, and you managed to beat me. I was running Crisis Battle Seats, and you were running the Arco Flagellants with the Feel No Pain team comp. I'm pretty
They
sure
were
it
good.
was.
They were good.
Yeah. The game, I think, is a lot better now. Like, I think the game's way more enjoyable. But amusing that I was kind of on an elite team, and you were kind of on like a mid-range team with a sisters flavour all the way back then, I guess. So not much has changed. But there we go. So I guess one of the main shocks that for people at WTC was our team choice. So I want to talk about teams a little bit first, and then we can talk about the WTC selection. Because obviously you took Novitiates to WTC, which I think every single person on day zero of WTC was like, "This is insane. What a ridiculously silly choice." like that makes no sense. Why on earth would we take Novitiates? And then you had a pretty strong singles performance coming third overall. So let's unpack that a little bit, right? So like why Novitiates? Like, are there other teams that you play in, and like why do you think that they're good?
So I guess there's a different question I should answer before I address this one, and that is how we chose the teams for this event, for the team event specifically,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we will discuss that at length further down the line. But my initial take was to make sure that whenever we pick any player to squad one or squad two, we don't pick just a player or just a kill team. We pick a combination of both in order not to repeat our mistakes from previous year where we thought, oh, there is a good team, let's have someone on it. And we forgot that in this game what is very important and very relevant is for us to play to our strengths. So, and now getting to your question, why novitiates? It's probably because I've always felt comfortable and more capable playing specific teams, mid-range teams, to be more specific. Novitiates, alongside Half-King Salvages, where like I like teams that have like between 8 and 10 operatives and can do specific things. Like I like to have a way to punch down elites. I like to have a way to double kill. In the previous season, I thoroughly enjoyed planting beacons left, right, and center. So this is what drove me when I selected my teams. Um, and then like for a long time I thought I would be playing Half-King Salvages, but then lo and behold, I got nerfed twice,
Yeah.
and I don't think that the team deserved it. And even though I think they were still playable, there was a choice between us having a better matchup into Sanctifiers and let's say elves, and us having a better matchup into hierotech and elites. My prediction was that we would not see too many elite players at WTC specifically, the team event. And for that reason, I thought like it's probably better to take a team that has a better matchup into Sanctifiers. And when I mean a better matchup, it doesn't mean that Novitiates trash Sanctifiers, but it means that even if they lose, they are not losing by much, because as much as it is difficult for Novitiate player to kill the other religious zealot, it is very difficult for Sanctifiers to successfully kill nuns with guns as well. So that was part of the decision-making process. So I did jump on novitiates very shortly after the most recent balanced data slate, and quickly realized that there's more to them than most people think there was. And yeah, and I enjoyed them. Of course, part of it was thanks to the fact that most people did not know how to play against them, what to do, what to expect. Because if you look at previous tier lists that appeared around early August on YouTube and everywhere online, novitiates tend to be at the time used to be placed around like fourth, fifth worst team in the game.
Yep.
So most people that I faced at WTC said, "Oh, I've never played against that team," or "I played them once upon release of the third edition of Killteam," which meant that we were in a completely different world to the one that they knew. So yeah, that was uh, yeah, one of the major reasons for me to pick that team.
I think there's like a
And I've played over 400 games with them in the second edition, so I thought like that might come in handy as well.
yeah, there's some skill sets to fall back on there. I think that like that shock factor of like turning up with a team you aren't prepared with is so like you can't really define it, because if there's things that people just haven't developed a tactic around, right, and they just see it for the first time, let's say that cost them 2 or 3 VP, well, actually, in a close game on Killteam, that's a victory or a loss, right? And particularly with how like blinding aura works and that sort of stuff. If you're not ready for it, and you just go, cool, I'm going to do this, and it's like I'm going to guard in this room, I'm going to be able to get a shot off, and you're like, well, no, you're not. Like, like that kind of thing can be so impactful to the way in which a game runs, that it can catch people out. And I think Hunterclade actually, another team that we saw do really well at WTC in the singles format. Is another team like that, right? Where like they've been rated consistently really poorly recently, and actually I think the consecutive buffs that team have received has buffed them into relevance. So for me right now for LGT, I'm like I need to get some practice into Hunterclade before I go, like because I think they're a team I don't know enough about, and I don't want to get caught out basically.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And funny enough, I did play Novitiates versus Hunterclade in my last round of the singles event at WTC. So enough said that I was extremely tired and I had to learn a completely new team because I was playing them for the very first time. And it wasn't easy. I'm just going to leave it at that. It wasn't easy. There's definitely more to them than people think. I personally would pick other 10 operatives teams above Hunterclade for various reasons.
Your personal
Um,
hatred of
but
Hunterclade.
yeah, it remains the team I've had the lowest win rate at tournaments throughout my Kill Team history in its entirety. But it's probably not because of that. Like I don't like to have too many big bases
Mhm.
if I have also around 10 bodies, because if you've got 10 bodies, five of which are on 40 mil bases, sometimes it gets tricky when it comes to positioning. I do not like to have only one model being allowed to perform more than two actions a turn,
Yeah.
and that GA2 play in a way has to be telegraphed to a certain degree. So there are certain reasons for which I'm not a Hunterclade player, but I can see that there's more to than most people give him credit for.
I think just because, in my opinion, what a lot of people did when they come into WTC was they looked at the big meta teams and they were like, "I'm going to practice against all those teams," right? Um, and then when this team turns up as a wild card, like it does kind of throw people off, right? And I think that's like I think we maybe a little bit wasted our shock factor of novitiates because I think the first time you played everyone with
Yeah.
novitiates, you stomped them, and then like that gave them like and I well to be fair I think all of them went away from those games and went like I need to learn everything about novitiates and like over the next 2 days they were like they ingrained it in their mind.
Well, that is totally true and definitely correct. Like when I played against Mateusz twice during that week, once at the singles event when I won, and the next time I played him, it was during the teams event where I could see that he already applied certain enhancements to his game plan and strategy and how he would approach that match. And his decisions were to an extent driven by his experience that he gained during that singles event and when he played for the first time. And yeah, like with those teams, it's as much as I think that playing with your team that you're supposed to play with at WTC Teams event, which is the main event, I would say, of that week. Um, with teams such as Novitiates, where the shock factor plays a huge role, it is probably a bit of a downside that you're giving away those plays, those tricks, and showing what a team can do. Like I had a conversation with the Spanish crew during one of the evenings in between the events. I think it was after day one of the singles event, and I spoke with Ace who played Blades of Cain, and he said like I'm gonna smash you, have like no chance. And I listened to what he was saying, and I didn't know if he was pulling my leg, trying to put some vision into my mind that is not gonna work, just to just to mess up with my brain the same way I messed up with theirs by picking the vicious in the first place. And or I thought like, or is it the case that we both think that we are very well positioned into the other person and the other team, and one of us is terribly wrong? and I don't want to be the guy who was terribly wrong, but but my experience proves to me that elf teams, if the Novitiates are pilots as well, do not have an easy game into nuns. So yeah, definitely shock factor was there, and I had people trying to shoot down novitiates with damage reduction and healing with bolt guns several times. I was like, sure, shoot me all day long. Uh,
You'll only make
so
them like somehow stronger after having shot them with a bolt gun twice.
yeah, I had people healing my operatives because they tried to shoot me with a frag grenade or something. I had people. Uh, Shocked when they asked, "What is this token over there?" So this is my auto broadcaster radio token. And after the game, they would say initially they would neglect it, and after the game, they would say, "Oh, I lost to that token, didn't I?" I said, "Yeah, you didn't lose to the operatives, you lost to that token over there." So yeah, there's definitely a bit of a shock factor. Novitiates were a wild card at that event, and a bit of a dark horse. Sorry. Yeah, I'm happy with the team choice for myself. I definitely played to my strengths. But shall we maybe move on from Novitiates because
Well, I was
that event is past
yeah.
us, and we should probably focus on WTC in general, or all the other topics we wanted to discuss.
Absolutely. And what I was going to say is because you were talking about then about like playing to your strengths. And I think one of the skill sets, because like choosing, if anyone's done this, by the way, not many people have, but when you do a team event, trying to choose your squad is really difficult to do, right? Because you have so many things to think about. Like I just said earlier, like what are the right players? What are the right teams? And can that player play that team well? Um, and that's a really hard thing. And then also you have potentially like let's say 15 players to choose from. You're trying to narrow it down. You're trying to make two squads. You're trying to find these like compromises. Like maybe you have two players and they're both really good players and they're both really good at one team. But then you're like, oh, like how do I split that out? So I think one of your best skill sets from this year was actually identifying the sort of archetypes that people were good at playing with, and saying like you're gonna basically focus on these types of teams, get really good with those sorts of teams, and then you have a backup option potentially, but you can then bring that in, right? Because you like we had a conversation pre WTC, which I think shaped my preparation for WTC quite a lot, right? Where essentially you said you're an elite player, right? Like you need to stop playing hordes, stop messing around with mid range teams, and you need to play elites. And I was like, fair enough. Like I'll get stuck in, and my first two tournaments were not good with elites, right? Like I went one in three or something. Like I was like, oh,
Well, let's be honest. You wanted to prove me wrong, but
yeah. Watch this bot, like yeah. Um, but yeah. So like, do you have anything like to say about that? Like how you sort of recognize these things and how you then sort of choose that pairing and matchup potentially?
So I guess there's a lot for us to dissect here, and let's start with choosing players for both squads combined. So choosing, in our case this year, 10 players out of all of those who declared that they wanted to go. We had a few more players declaring the will to go to WTC. So of course I had to choose the 10 players based on who I thought was the strongest choice, or the 10 strongest players, because ultimately we wanted to go there to represent our community to the best of our ability and make sure that we come back. So come back with the shield and not on the shield.
Yeah.
So there's that. And we did it. So the process, at least this year, it worked. During that stage, I would ask players about the biggest achievement in Killteam, how often they play, what teams they play with, where they play, and give any particular insights that they may share with me. And it was very helpful because obviously, as much as I think I can say that I know a lot of players in our community. Of course, I don't know every single person to the same level I know you or Serkan or the rest of the old ones. So it was very helpful for me to understand how often players play, what do they play, how often do they win, what are their achievements, what are they commonly placing high and at tournaments. So that was very important. And then there was that phase where I thought about maybe not kill teams, but archetypes. And I initially, that was one of my initial thoughts and plans to play to our strengths and pick the players alongside with the preferred kill team archetypes. And you playing an elite team, that was a good example because if I recall, our games from the previous edition and all the test games that we played, if you play a horde team, sorry to bring that up from
It's all right.
last year, but and when you went with Inquisition to WCW in Atlanta last year, um, you came back on your shield, not with your shield. Um, and that did not go very well, but every single time I played against you and you played some elite team that I would find otherwise easy to beat, playing a different opponent, it proved to be a real challenge. That's why in our conversation I said, Ryan, you're an elite player, please play elites. In my case, as much as I know that certain hordes are better in general than the teams that I tend to pick, the mid-range teams, I know I'm not a horde player because I hate a situation when my opponent gives me something and I see, oh, there's a chance for me to kill that operative, to take them down, and then it takes me half a year to actually manage that operative, and I have to activate half of my team to deal with them because I'm hitting on fours, because my weapons are strong enough, because I don't have enough rerolls or whatnot. And of course, every single time I whiff, there's a chance that they will then come out from around the angle or from around the corner, take an angle and shoot me down or whatnot. So there's that. Um, so I knew that I wasn't a horde player. Um, if we look at, for instance, Serkan, I would say that Serkan is predominantly an elf player. He
Mhm.
likes to have his operatives do different things, or be capable of doing different things, and all of them being capable of doing the same things at the same time. So you don't have to choose, oh, this is my fighter, I'm going to charge you and kill you in melee with that guy. Now, Serkan likes those teams that and performs better with those teams where his operatives are very flexible. Um, the other thing is that we wanted to pick teams and players playing those teams were very devoted to a certain archetype. And in this case, second good example, he devoted himself to playing one team for the first time since I met the guy. And he's been playing Sanctifiers day in, day out, and he did not deviate from that path. And that allowed him to increase his performance drastically. Then you've got the players who I refer to as Excel spreadsheet players. I mean, Guy and Mikhail, who play this game as if it was an Excel spreadsheet. And they are better with very specific teams as well. Um, so, and then you've got the Wonder Child who just takes whatever is most broken and just kills everyone on his way,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really matter who that is and what they play. Um, so in a way, that mindset that allowed me to uh, create certain buckets in my mind that I knew we needed to fill, and I knew would be helpful when determining who's playing what squad and which squad and with what team. When it comes to the event itself, that was a lengthy process because when we started our conversations about WTC, we were like two balanced data slates and one box away
Yeah.
from the event. So in such time, all that you can discuss really is just the archetypes and the strengths of each player. So there was that. We also knew that we had certain overlaps because, for instance, Harrison played the same team as Dan. So there's that. And to an extent, like I had an overlap with Tom, who played Nans as well in the past as well, in the previous edition. So we had to manage that to a certain degree. And with us getting closer to the event and the meta game getting clearer in front of us, we could make certain uh, decisions and be more surgical about it. Um, Looking at the event itself and final selection, at least to me, it was very important that we take a slightly different approach than most Spanish teams take, at least reportedly, because you will hear it many times over that they like the sword and shield approach. You've got
Yeah.
teams that are shields are designed to defend and take whatever comes their way, not give too many points away. And you've got teams that are swords, which are used to rank as many victory points as possible. And actually, these are the teams that you are expecting to win the round with. I had a slightly different approach. I wanted to create certain problems for uh, teams I expected to be commonly picked at that event, being Hierotech, being Sanctifiers, um, being Warp Coven. Of course, not all the teams that are listed may have problems being put in front of them, but where possible, I wanted that to be the case. And if you look at, for instance, Sanctifiers on our team with Novitiates being put next to them, if someone has challenges killing Sanctifiers because of their durability, that may translate to the same challenge for them killing Novitiates. So if they were to put that team forward as their defender, we would given a choice between Novitiates and Sanctifiers, and it's a bad choice either way because those teams play in a very similar manner in that matchup. So that was my approach. And the other thing was that rather than picking certain teams that will act as our swords or shields, I just wanted to make sure that we cover the absolute best, most flexible teams in the game that we consider as those absolute best and highest ranked teams in the game at the time. Warp Coven, Hierotech Circle, Sanctifiers. So it was actually extremely insightful for me and curious to a certain degree to see that our perception of the metagame overlapped with a Polish perception to a certain degree, because they also had Hierotech Circle, Sanctifiers, and Warp Coven. But if we look at Spanish teams, most of it, I don't think any of them had the same three teams that we would say, yeah, these were the top teams. And so you're actually not picking five, you're only picking two.
Yeah, so there's so much to unpack on that. I'm gonna just try and go through each bit as we go. So
Sorry.
no, it's good. So the first bit I want to talk about is the two bad choices. I think it was really really important for WTC and the pairings metric. So for those who don't know, the pairings metric essentially you put forward a defender, and then the opposing team puts forward two attackers, and you have to choose out of that matchup as to which one you have. And I think we did a really good job of always being able to force two unfavorable situations for them, right? So usually, as you said, the Spanish team, they had like a standard, this is my shield, these are my swords, whatever, and they'd throw out there like, oh, this is my standard person that we were going to throw out. And pretty much always, I think we predicted who they were going to put out. And then pretty much always we had the counter of, and these are the two teams now that you have to face. And you watched pretty much every single time that they looked at it and they went, oh, I don't actually like either of those. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like that's no, oh, that's bad and that's worse. So I guess I'll go with the bad, and we're like, yep, that works for us, sort of thing. And then that process repeated, I think, it was really strong. I believe we only made one pairing mistake throughout the whole of the WTC, and that was doing the Sanctify mirror match vice, or allowing the Sanctify mirror match versus forcing it into Novitiates. I think was the one time I thought this hasn't worked out the way I wanted it to. And actually, like, if we went to the pairings of the last round again, I think the pairings were perfect. I know there was a whole bunch of stuff that went on, and yeah, we can get into the details of why certain games went certain ways, but like we were so close. And I thought, you know what, I think on the pairings and the captainship of the team, we were in the right place at the right time. So I think it's a really interesting way of describing it. Is two bad choices as opposed to like, yeah, I'm going to give you a sword and I'm going to give you a shield. It's like, no, I'm going to just focus on what's the counter picks to this particular thing that we think you're going to take. You also,
Yeah, on that
sorry, yeah,
note, sorry, on that note, I think and many people that will listen to this podcast may not know about this, but at playing the WTC format, the pairing perception changes drastically depending on whether you're the attacker or the defender. Because, long story short, you want to be the attacker in most cases, because that will allow you to dictate 3 out of 5 matchups, 3 out of 5 pairings, which is huge, because the win or loss is determined by the difference in victory points across the entire team. So that is that. And what I was quite satisfied with is that at the end of the day, look, going for our pairings, and this is where I should say hats off to you as well, Ryan, because you were extremely helpful in that process during every single round. Um, we were able to build a plan depending on whether we're the defender or whether we're the attacker, and end up with something that we more or less wanted to end up with. And that is, in a way, a game within a game.
yeah,
And it is a difficult game because I think last year we had no such preparation.
agreed. Yeah,
And it was more like, yeah, sure, I can play with it. And it did not always work out to our advantage. So I would say that this year we were definitely more prepared in that department, had a stronger plan. And every now and then we would put something forward, and you would see frantic research of notes from the opposing team, and them say like, we did not expect that. Oh, this is interesting, and yeah. So I think we did well in that department.
So yeah, and one of the things I'd add to this as well is like I think last year I think we went very like analytical only, right? So we had like a spreadsheet and we said based on this matchup, the answer is this, right? And we didn't really take into account like the psychology and the people you're playing against and the personalities. And I think one of the main strengths we have now is within our community we know most of the other communities, right? So we know how people think. We know what their perception is of matchups, what they think is a good matchup, what they think is a bad matchup, and what we think is the perception of a good matchup and a bad matchup. And I'll touch back on this in a second, but we think that Sanctifiers into Goremongers is favourable for Sanctifiers. The rest of the community seemed to think that that was favourable for Goremongers, and I think Serkan won all his games against Goremongers. So I'm like, we're pretty confident in this assessment. But it's that kind of thing, right? Of like thinking how your opponent thinks is I think really critical to being able to choose the right matchups at the time. And an example of this was like we were playing. This was against the Australians, and we're trying to just do that matchup process. And essentially, what you do is we go through every iteration of if we put this player forwards, what are all the different outcomes and what does it look like if that happened, right? And is that favourable for us or bad for us? And we went through the standard things. We're like, oh, okay, we'll put Warp Coven first. How does that work out? And actually, it didn't work out very favourable. We'll put this player first and that sort of stuff. And we did the same for our opponents as well, right? So like we tried to go through and think through all of what their opponents would do. And weirdly, like the worst case scenario for our pairings and matchups would be if they put Raveners first, right? Which is like something they would never
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. Which is something that no one would ever do. But that was
That was
in
actually
our
the answer.
assessment. That was our worst case scenario. And I want to touch on something that you mentioned briefly, but I think a highlight of that thought is quite crucial for anyone trying to prepare to a team event. Uh, when looking at pairings, and of course that may be relevant if the pairing system is different. Um, but when looking at pairings, within the WTC format, in my opinion, it is often not as important as to what you think about the pairing. If you want to get it right, it is important for you to understand what they think about it.
Exactly.
So if you're convinced that let's say Ravenous versus Inquisition. That is a good example because I heard from other players that this pairing is good for Ravenous. That they should smash Inquisition. And in our assessment, it was the other way around. But we needed to understand the other perception to help us get to the outcome that we wanted to get to, which in this case was just put forward Tom into that pairing and let him kill his fifth or sixth Ravener play in a row. Um, yeah, like what I would say is that if you're playing in that wider format, where the pairings and how they're matched together, that would work exactly the same way as per WTC format. Understanding the metagame and pairings is important, but this is for you to know where you want to get to. If you want to know how to get there, you need to understand the other team's perception.
Yeah. And yeah, and to be fair, I think it's one of the most fun bits of WTC. Like doing that process, that analysis ahead of each round, and like thinking, right, like I think if we do this, we're going to be okay. And then when it comes off, you have that like massive moment of elation where you're like, yes, we've nailed this. As I said, I think we were like 99% accurate. I think there was one pairing we could have forced the other way around, and the rest of the tournament, I think we were like absolutely spot on. Which I don't think many teams could probably say that they were in that scenario where they could walk away from their pairing saying, yes, we have achieved the exact pairing outcome that we wanted in this scenario, right? Or potentially, maybe they did, and that's like brings on to the next interesting point about WTC.
But then, if both teams are convinced that they have the pairings they wanted to get, one of the teams must be wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it is also entirely possible that we were the team that was wrong and we just got lucky. But you'll never know by now. But we will live in our conviction that we were the correct team.
Yeah, we yeah, and but like the bit I'd say is really interesting as well for WTC is that battle of perceptions, right? So I find it so interesting how different metas perceive different team strengths and all that sort of stuff, and how there are some like truisms. Like I think everyone sort of said, yeah, Warp Coven's good. Some people thought Goremongers would be good in the format. Some people didn't think they'd be good in the format. Sanctifiers are pretty much a staple in a lot of teams. But like we saw way more Elven teams in the Spanish like meta than we did anywhere else, and Poland were taking Mandrakes, which again was somewhat similar to Novitiates. I think a lot of people were like, Mandrakes make no sense, and then obviously piloted by a very good player, he's out smashing people with Mandrakes, and that's like again.
So we have to be fair here, and the Polish crew put an absolute Terminator on that team. So
Yeah,
um, yeah,
maybe it's
like
not
we
just
have to give
Mandrakes,
credit where
right?
credit was due, and in this case, uh, there are certain players you can give them whatever. You'll give them a broken bottle and some cracked chips box, and they will kill you with it. So, and Amadeus is one of those people. So we don't know, we will never know if it's just mandrakes, but I would say is very, very
I
likely not just mandrakes.
I don't think it's Mandrakes. I think it is a combination of a very good player playing a team that a lot of people don't have experience into. Like because there was like pretty much a moment during 10.2 where I realised I was cooked. Like I was like, I have gone from like going from like a game where I was like, yeah, I'm pretty confident on this. Like I think, and then suddenly I was like, I fucked up. I messed up in a big way here, and I was like, I am now on damage mitigation. I remember turning to you and being like, I'm on damage mitigation. I'm just trying to lose by the least amount. And I'm like, I'm not even sure I can do that, right? Like I was like, I'm not even sure I can do
And
that. Um,
for all of us worshippers of the one and only Ryan Slade, we know that this doesn't happen too often. So, so, so there's that.
But it was like, but again, like because the rest of the pairings had gone so well, I was terrified. I was like, oh, have I done this for the team? Have I messed up? And then you sort of look out at the rest of the games, and I'm like, oh no, like it's all good down the rest of the table. Like we've got this. Every other pairing has gone the way we thought it was going to go. Like we had our Inquisition into Ravenous. That's what we wanted to happen, right? We had you into Sanctifiers. We're like that should be a pretty close game. And then like was it Dan playing playing Warp Coven and Sanctifiers versus Hierotech, and so Serkan unfortunately has probably had the absolute ringer of preparation games of a Hierotech Circle versus Sanctifiers. So like he was like he was very much like I'm ready for this, like
Yeah,
and so that actually brings me back because you were talking about how Serkan was prepping for the event, and basically he was deep diving into a certain faction. And I think there is something to be said about the value of that, right? And it's not necessarily a specific team, but that does help if your team remains like consistently through the event, or preparation to the event. But like that archetype preparation, where once you've seen all of the various matchups that you could potentially come against, it means that you can be way more confident in going into those matchups for a start, and also informing your team captain when it comes to pairings. So one of the things that I thought I was not great on in Warp Coven was I had like a theoretical knowledge of how I thought the game would go, but because I had switched team quite late on, I was like, I can't give you any sort of like I'm expecting to win this by this margin, right? Like, whereas you speak to Serkan and he's like, yeah, like with that game, like if my opponent knows what they're doing, I'll win by two. If they don't know what they're doing, like I'll win by a lot. And if they're really good, then I'll lose by two. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, you can give that sort of weighting almost. Where when you're doing that pairing matchup, I think that's really useful to be able to say, okay, well, if we take the averages and you lose by two and you lose by two, but you win by 20, you win by 20, and you win by 20, well, I'm happy with that. Like, and one of these can go wrong, and it kind of works.
Yeah, and here I guess there's a few things we should mention. Like the scoring system works slightly differently at WTC, and that scoring system grew on me massively. And it's based on victory points differentiator. And if you win by you essentially you've got 20 points split between both players. So when Ryan says win by 20 means that 20-0, and that requires a difference of at least 10 victory points between both players. So there's that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that communication with the captain, for all those who do not know, when you're playing your actual game at WTC, you cannot communicate with your teammates. You can only talk to your captain or coach, and the coach topic is a separate subject that we should probably discuss in a moment.
Yeah.
But when you do talk to your captain, none of that can be a tactical advice of any manner. You can only say whether it's going well or it's going poorly, and whether you're expecting to win or lose. And then the captain is supposed to give you some feedback around you should risk it or you should hold your ground because we're doing well. And the captain is that core of the team that accumulates the knowledge about how the round is going, and core can be shifted towards the coach. And we didn't have a coach on our team. Probably something we should rectify next year, because that takes a lot of burden off the shoulders of the captain. There were moments where I had to have a conversation with the judges, the TO, and the opposing team's captain, and I wasn't available to collect data and offer feedback to Serkan in that case, and he couldn't make a decision based on how the rest of the team was doing at the time. He had to make a decision himself without any feedback, and that was definitely unhelpful. So we will definitely have to work on that coach aspect. And one last thing I wanted to mention before I'll shut up again is that situation we had in one of the rounds where the opposing team did a mid-round check on how each match was going, and because the official language of the tournament is English, they had to communicate with their captain in English about how the round was going. And I think it was in your game where the opponent said to the captain, "Oh, it's doing well. It's going well. I'm going to win." And then you told me after the match that at the time you already knew that he was going to lose by some point. That was extremely insightful and interesting. And like further down the line, I just came up with a 3-word code to ask you some random words. Like, give me one of the 3 words. It was cow, chips, or sky to determine whether it's going well, whether it's going bad, or whether it's just so-so. Because it is, I think, equally as important not to give away the information to the opposing player as to how you think this game is going. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, so I'll quickly touch on the last bit. So yeah, perceptions of like game state is really interesting, and this is where I talk about it in my videos quite a lot about I like to track all the VP throughout the game, and I think one of the things people don't track very often is kill op, right? Like I think people look at crit op, they look at tac op, and they are making their assessment based on that, and they go kill op's going to work itself out at the end, right? And I was doing this game, and I was like, well, I think I'm going to get 2 on kill op, and I think he's going to get 1 on kill op. So I think I'm going to get 3, and I'm going to get 2 VP extra. I think he was forecasting based on crit op that he's going to win and tac op by 1 point, right? And I was like, well, yeah, I think you're going to win the crit op and the tac op by 1 point, and then you're going to lose by 2 points, which means I'm going to win by 1, right? Like, and I'm like, and that's best case scenario right now, but the feedback going to the coach was, I'm gonna win this game. And so like I was in like an interesting position where I was like, okay, and not just that, but I also thought if I win a couple of initiatives or do something like you know get one of these plays off, I think might happen, that I might be able to make that even bigger of a swing. And the moment like the you know the coin drop, the penny drops, whatever, was you know at the beginning of sort of turning point 4, and he realised I'm going to lose, and it's like, and then he was asking the coach, hey, do I like I can lose now by 1, or I can risk it and I can potentially win like by a little bit by being more risky. But if I take that risk, there's a chance I might lose by 4, right? And like that, what you talk about then, having capacity in that coach seat to be able to tally up all the scores, and they basically looked around and they did the maths and they went. And to be fair, I think they took about like 8 minutes on his clock to like think this through. It was a big decision, right? But you had the time, so you know you use the time you have, right? And I don't really care. And they went it through and they're like, the answer is for the team is you need to risk it. Like we're already going to lose unless you win by a couple of points, so you need to risk it. And then he played for that risk, didn't pay off, but you know that having that cognitive decision and that brain power to do that is really important with a team. And what you touched on, I think, at the start of it was when you're being a captain, like you're having to play some of the hardest games like you're ever going to play a kill team, because across the table from you is one of you know the Spanish, Polish, Australian, you know, like whoever it is, Dutch, like best players, right? So like
The absolute juggernauts of this
yeah,
game. Yeah.
yeah. So you're already having one of the most like complex, stressful games that you can have, and then concurrent to that, you have all of the TO interactions and all that sort of stuff about wider things going on for the event, which you have to be aware of, and any rulings that are being made and that sort of stuff that you have to communicate to the team. And then also you have now someone saying, "Oh, do I need to increase my risk or reduce my risk? Like how's the board state going?" And you have people constantly feeding information. So I think that much like mental and cognitive load on a player is probably not good to have someone that's also playing their game, right? Which is why I think the Spanish did so well, because by having that coach there, they take the tournament rulings away, they take the sort of the noise away, they take the points burden away, and then all they have to do is just come to the captain and say, we're currently losing by 1 point. You know, like that's it. And
Yeah, and I think this is something that we should definitely. This is one of those things that we can improve on next year when we have to. But we'll talk about this a bit, I guess. But I would definitely see us having a coach on each team next year, because there's speaking from experience, my singles event went really well, and I went 6-1, and I finished third with a team that everyone saw as a very bottom tier team. And I was like pretty happy with myself and with the outcome. And then when I look at my performance within the teams event, of course, there's a whole matrix of things that you need to consider, like pairings and how you may be taking a bullet for the team because they are going to win their games and all of that. Uh, but all things considered, I look at my result, my wins and losses, and I say, huh, that went pretty poorly in a teams event. And then I like wanted to consider what were the factors, the deciding factors, and one of those was definitely the stamina over 4 days, but the other was the sheer weight of assignments and tasks for the captain on top of the games that the captain has to play, that I have to play as a captain, and lack of a coach on board in a set of probably some of the most stressful games that we have played till date, playing Killteam. And that altogether, that took its toll. So this is definitely one of the lessons that, for me, that next year, whoever is the captain, what I'm going to recommend to them is please make sure that you bring a coach on every single team, and not only a coach, but also like an admin manager to take care of all the other things, because there's an absolute ton of things to manage. If you think about managing five. Not adults, five grown-up boys playing with plastic toy soldiers, and you have to manage their life for 4 days. It's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I had 10 of them. So so I think like having a coach is definitely extremely important.
Yeah, I could agree. Well, so the one thing I would say is like the touch on it though is like you want to have someone that's I think knowledgeable of the game and knows what they're doing, all that sort of stuff, and is potentially a good player. And then equally, like you're thinking, but does that player like are they better off on the team, like and like actually playing the game? So I think, for instance, an example, the spreadsheet warriors that you've already mentioned, Mikel and Guy, I think would be like fantastic as coaches because they could be going through, running their spreadsheets, telling you what the likelihood is. They know all the rules off by heart pretty much. Particularly Mikel, like he's so knowledgeable with rules. But then you lose that player like on the team sheet, right? So then you're like, oh, like, but
Yeah,
actually I want that player on my team sheet, not like not doing the coaching role.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a like, I don't know how you balance those two. That's really tough.
But this is where we have to commend the Spanish approach. When uh, we got to play the final match of that week against the Spanish team, where their coach was Alberto, the guy who makes the Spanish app and maintains the Spanish app for Kill Team. The first thing he did when like he's a great guy throughout, but the first thing that he said to me when we greeted each other was he gave me a hug and he was like, "Bart, we made it to the finals." So he saw himself as a very integral part of that team. And I think this is something that has to be understood. The coach is not someone just a sidekick who doesn't get to play the game. The role of a coach is extremely important, and that person, whoever that is, must feel as an essential, crucial part of the team, of the crew, on the same level as any and each of the players.
I completely agree. Like, and because it does, like, it frees capacity up, right? And I think there's so many times where if you weren't thinking about a million and one different things, because you had a coach there doing it, like potentially each of our individual performances would have been better. And if it only needs to be by 5%, right, or 10%. But we had interactions where people make rules mistakes and stuff like that, where potentially a coach can help in that scenario where you can say, "Can I quickly check a rule, please?" And they can be doing that in the background whilst you're still thinking about your board, rather than you going through your own core rule book, trying to like check rules, right? Like, and they can have the discussion with the TO
On a
in the
clock,
background
because
on a
yeah,
clock, right?
on the clock, because all of these discussions, rules checks, they go on your time, and time in this game when you play a very competitive match is crucial. So there's that, and I'm gonna be honest with you, there were moments throughout that tournament when I thought like, gosh, I wish I was a coach, so I would be in a position where I could like help the others, but not play myself because like. 4 days back to back is a bit too much. I had to put that game away for basically the other 2 weeks. so so there's that. But yeah, definitely role of a coach is extremely important. Next year we're bringing a coach.
Yeah, and for who I don't know, it was 14 games in 4 days. So I didn't realize quite how many games it was when I first signed up to it. I thought like day one we would be playing two rounds. I thought it'd be like 6 and 6. And I remember just like getting to the sort of the end of day one. I'm like, oh my god, it's like 8 p.m. and we're still going. Like,
Yeah,
are
yeah,
we back at
yeah,
like the World Championships of Warhammer or something? Like, what is going on? Like, I feel so tired.
yeah.
Um, so I think what we'll do is we'll quickly run into some Patreon questions because actually they're very related to this subject, and I think it'll be a good way to sort of to carry it on. And for anyone that's like interested, what I've done is I've put like on the Patreon a link and said I'm going to be interviewing Bart. So you throw your questions up, and then I put them to Bart. So I'll try and do this regularly whenever I have interviews for guests, is to get people, you know, a little bit of thanks for supporting the channel. So let's go with the first bit. With the first question is, what was the best aspect of being a team captain? And then to flip the coin, what's the worst aspect?
I guess the best aspect, because well, you should never put me in a position of power, because you should immediately see Darth Sidious and screaming unlimited power. So that was definitely one of the good things, that I got to decide how we would approach that tournament the way I wanted to do it. Of course, I did consult with many players, including yourself, but at the end of the day, I knew that I can make the decisions that I think but are the good decisions at any given time, and then live with the outcome, and take the blame, or get down with the ship if the ship gets like goes down. So that was probably the thing that I enjoyed, and that I could shape the process, that I could introduce the process that I wanted to introduce, that I could follow it, and by the end of it, I could say, okay, we're doing this, and that for the following reasons, and see if it plays out. That was definitely a cool thing. What was the worst thing about it? I guess I would say, because this year we came up with a brilliant idea to have one person allocating 10 players between two teams, and then helping with the admin bit. So making sure that everyone had accommodation, transportation sorted, that all of the lunch orders have been put through, that we collect the money for all the merchandise that we had, the t-shirts, the dice, the measuring gauges, whatnot. Um, on top of everything that we discussed about being a captain and a coach, and all of that was combined in just the role of one person. I would say that was the worst part of the experience this year. And if you were to ask me, but would you do it again in the exact same format? I would say absolutely not. I think we need to split that role into uh, one that will take care of team allocation, probably with the aid of like extra two players. So you've got like the 3 out of people looking at that, with one of them having the final say. Then you need a separate person who's like almost like a team manager that helps with all the admin bit. And then you've got the coaches for each team for the duration of the event and before the event. So there's definitely a lot to learn from this year's experience.
Yeah, I think for sure we should be bringing in at least 3 teams next year. Like, I'll be interested to see if WTC will let us bring more. I know there's a lot of regional teams that are very interested in playing, so I would like to see more come in, and then like potentially with, as you say, with an enhanced footprint, you know, sort of a generic team manager, the overall, you know, national captain, the team captains for the teams themselves, and probably like, as you said, the coaches as well. I think you have quite a large footprint, and to be fair, one of the things I did like about WTC, although it was 14 games in 4 days, was the fact that you could do the singles event as like a coach and all that sort of stuff, and you still play Killteam, you still get 7 games, which for most people is is plenty of games to have played, right? And then you can then still support and engage and do the team event in a subtly different way. So you still feel like you've got your fix of getting to roll dice, whilst also doing what we agreed to be a very critical role of like actually helping coach the team through to success. So you actually already answered the next question, which was if you were team captain again next
But
year, what is it? Is there anything you would do differently? But I'll let you add in.
yeah, we can probably like dwell on that a bit more. But well, I want to share an unpopular opinion here,
Mm-hmm.
because you said you wish that we will get to bring more teams than three, and I actually think that the direction I would like WTC to head towards is one where each country actually has one team, maybe of 8 players, like in the big 40K or the Ninth Age or all the other bigger systems. And the reason for that is I think that it will make participation within that as part of that team a more elite experience, something to strive for in the first place. So the sole fact that you're going as a member of the UK squad, that in itself is an achievement. This is what I would like to see. And if we have regional teams on top of country teams as well, uh, you you may end up not at some point not playing actual country teams from the other end, because you'll play Kill Team Catalonia, Kill Team
Yeah,
Silesia from Poland, Kill Team Birmingham or Manchester, and like you see what I'm going with this is I think I would like to see this event remaining an event to look out for, not only because it's the biggest event, but also because it's the elite event of the year. But as I said, I'm sharing an unpopular opinion.
yeah.
I
So
think 3 is the maximum number of squads I would like to see per country next year.
I think aspirationally in the future, if we can get to the point where each nation can bring 3 teams of 8 or something like that, I think that'd be awesome. But I think currently we're not there yet where each nation can put together like an 8-man team. And so I think in the interim, right, because like essentially the gaming hall, like I think we could fill like I don't know how many teams there are for the big 40K events, but there's a lot of them, right? Like because so many nations are represented. I agree with you that like in future it would probably have to scale back, and as they scale back the number of teams, they increase the team size. If that makes sense. So you know maybe in a couple of years' time they go to 6 players and they go to 7 players and they go to 8 players or whatever. But in the interim, I think it's kind of important that to keep it accessible is the main thing, because I don't know, like we haven't seen. So for example, I know there's some really good Hungarian players, right? Like I know that there's probably I've met and played against like 3 really good Hungarian players, but I'm sure there's like maybe 2 more. Maybe they're struggling to get them. But if you say you need to find 8, like maybe they're not going to be able to then like bring that
Yeah,
team
okay,
in.
I take that point.
So
Maybe
that's
not
the
8.
yeah, but like in future, like when the kill team community continues to grow and hopefully we pick up momentum, I think what you're talking about, the vision, is 100% right. It's just how we get there, right? Like, and bring everyone with us is the idea, because that'd be awesome.
But yeah, to address your question, what I would do differently.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, again, I would probably strive to split the role of the captain into several different roles. That's one thing. The other thing is I would put even more onus on players focusing on certain teams and mastering them.
yeah,
I think uh, we should strive to, I mean, each of us to identify the archetype of a team that we're good with, that we're better with, and just play games with it ad nauseum, like play games with that team. Like when I spoke to Mateusz from Poland during the second edition of Killteam, when he was the avid player of Vedgard, and he told me at some point he was like in excess of 600 or 700 games with a team. It's like most of the players from the community would not play that many games with their team throughout the whole edition.
yeah,
Uh, but that was one of the reasons as to why Mateusz got so good at the game. So that would be something that I would like to fight for and to master for us as the entire community willing to go to WTC next year. Pick an archetype, stick to two teams, one of them being your main and the other will be your backup just in case the first one gets nerfed. And no, the backup cannot be equally viable for a nerf as your main. And just play games with that team and nothing else. Do not jump on the next pretty thing that gets released just because it's more broken than the previous thing that you played. And yeah, this is probably something that we should improve upon next year.
So I've got some advice to people that potentially in the UK are looking to get into this team event. They want to participate. Is building on what you've said. So the first stage I think people should do is like identify what is your right archetype, right? Because I was playing around with a whole bunch of teams. I needed someone basically to come and tell me I'm more scared of you when you play this type of team than I am any other team, right? So that was a bit like a bit of advice, and that helped me focus my then like finding the archetype and working on the archetype. And so potentially ask your friends, or do whatever you need to do and say, hey, like what are you most scared of when I put it across the table from you, like what is going to make you think, oh, like I'm not going to win this game, or oh, this is going to be a really hard one than it is normally. And then, as you said, like build on that, like that data set, right, where you just keep doing the reps with those types of teams. Be that like a play style, maybe it's melee teams, maybe it's a number of activations, maybe it's whatever it is that's your gel. Like find that thing and just start ranking it out. And the two bits that I'm doing, which I'm doing to hopefully prepare better for WTC next year, because I'm really excited for WTC. I want to go again next year. I want to try and do better. Is one is down like getting the analytics right. So I want to do a better job of informing my team captain of how I see matchups going, and where I think the rough score should be. And so I've started running a spreadsheet with all my games in it, and within that, someone else designed it, by the way, way smarter than me. It's all automated. But like you put in your games, you select what you've done, it tells you the outcome, and then like it gives you medium results for various tac ops and all that sort of stuff, right? So hopefully when I get to my 600th game of Deathwatch, I'm assuming I'm still on Deathwatch at this point, but like I'll be able to tell you at the end of it, like, oh yeah, I should be able to play this. I know that if it's open board, I'm going to score roughly this. I know if it's ITD, I'm going to score this, etc., and be able to give you those sort of feedback. And the final thing that I'm doing, so for those who don't know, I'm part of a TO collective community now. So we have all the UK TOs in one big group, and we're organising for UKTC events, like individual regional events and all that sort of stuff. And we're trying to like collaborate as much as we can do. And I'm slowly pressuring more and more TOs to have more and more team events. So within the UKTC calendar next year, there's going to be a couple of team events. There's one this year, but we're going to have more next year, and there's going to be more regional team events as well. And because I think the bit that we touched on earlier, which is year one when we went to WTC, we had no idea what we were doing with pairings, right? Like we were kind of new to it, we were learning it as we went, and our inexperience I think showed. Whereas we brought the same people again the next year, and having learned those lessons, I think we perform much better at pairings. So therefore, if we want to get a third team or a fourth team, whatever, ready, and for them to succeed, they need to learn that experience. They need to get good at pairings, and that's hopefully the way we can do it. And it means that we can probably, hopefully, get even better at those team formats. So those are the bits that I'm
Tell you what, on that note, I think what we could consider is what I experienced back in Poland, and that is having a national team championship tournament, an annual event that is like, let's say, a 3-man event, but we could maybe make it a 5-man event, and make it a team championship event on a national scale in the UK, rather than just going about it, playing 3-man team events here and there. But we could maybe arrange something bigger that would be an annual one-off, and that would definitely help us enormously in preparation for WTC. But that would need to be way ahead of WTC, obviously. So if WTC is this year was end of August, last year was beginning of August. So that would mean that we would need to have the national team championship event around May, the latest?
So we have some plans for that. So TPT event, there'll be a teams TPT event. I think all of these are looking for the five players, and that's kind of what we're hoping on. There's a few other sneaky benefits as well. I'm sort of now selling team events for people, but like if you take 16 teams as 5 players each, that's 80 players for an event, and you play 4 rounds, you get an undefeated team at the end of it, and you have 80 players, right? I'm like that's like a really good for community size and
Yeah.
scale, and it means that we can get a lot of people involved. So um, look out for it. Is what I'm saying, right? Like if you're interested in team events, like, I'm very excited for them. I think they're amazing. I think we can have duos, trios, the big 5-man teams, and we can scatter them throughout the sort of the calendar year so that people have these sorts of flavors and these events.
Genuinely looking forward to get carried by my teammates. Woohoo!
It's always the way. That's what you need. Okay, so I've got another Patreon question here, which is I'll be going to the International Team Tournament in November. That's the one in London. Sorry, London, I believe. Yeah, London for the UKTC. What's the best way to pick our teams? And he says, is it just whoever we like, or is there some tactics involved? Now, we've already touched on quite a bit of this, so maybe you can summarise an answer to that.
Yeah, so uh, I haven't looked at the pairing system for that team event, but pairing system is definitely important. If it's just one player gets to be player A, the other player B, and the third player C, and B plays against B, plays against A, and C plays against C, there's that game within the game that's taken out of the process. So and that will have a huge impact. If it's like WTC pairings, then you need to start considering who's your typical defender and why, and what are the downsides or upsides of having that team as your typical defender. Is there anything that would change that? And then you can think about who are your typical attackers in a way that you will look at who you expect the other guys to put forward as their defender, in case they have to go first, and what teams you want to put in front of them as two bad choices, something that we discussed at length earlier on. So this will have a massive impact. But first and foremost, I would say stick to your strengths. Like you've got 3 players, you need to pick teams that each of those players will feel comfortable with and will perform better with. Because I can tell you that if you put me on a team that has 12 plus operatives and each of them has 7 wounds and the move shoot mentality and to APL and it's just a horde, I'm not going to perform as well as I would with a mid-range team. So that's that. So play to your strengths, think about the pairing system, and depending on the pairing system, you need to understand the pairing systems throughout and then try to dissect it and try to think how do you come out on top after that game within the game.
I think that's great advice. And like I'd say, if you can shortlist yourself down to a few types of teams, where you go, like, okay, I have 10 teams, right? Like wherever it is. I obviously have more than 10 teams, but let's say you have 10 teams, and you go, cool, those are my 10 teams. Like, right, what are the teams that I'm comfortable playing? Like I know I enjoy playing. Right, that's 5, and it's like, okay, now what are these like are now good teams? Let's say it's 3. Right, I got my 3 that I think me personally are good with. Get your rest of your teammates and get them to go, right, what teams like do the same process, and then when you have those sort of like that discussion, then you can go, right, now based on the fact that you guys have all these and I have all these, what do we think is a good pairing to achieve all that defender matchup or the 2 bad matchups and that sort of stuff is, because otherwise you just run a risk of, as you say, just like, I'm going to play this team because I like it, and then it's like, you have no synergy with something else, or someone says play this team because it's broken and you never played it before, and you just turn up and you do rubbish with it, and then suddenly you've lost before you've even begun. So that would be my two cents.
One more thing that we could probably mention here is that the fewer the player count, the lower the player count, the fewer the players on a team, the more important flexibility is of each of those teams. And if you've got more players, then you can try to specialize and do certain things better than in certain circumstances. But if you've got fewer players, you need to show more flexibility with each of them because you don't have too many of those micro moves to choose to arrange the pairing. So there's that. And I would say that as a very last comment on that note would be try to avoid situations where all three of your teams, let's say you will play a 3-man event, try to avoid a situation in which all three of your teams do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So don't go to an event where, for instance, you'll take Vetguard, uh, Brook Brothers, and I don't know, Inquisition or like whatever else, or
Pathfinders, like this.
Blooded Pathfinders. Like, don't bring three teams that do exactly the same thing, unless you're in a position when you think the archetype that we're bringing is the absolute best archetype, and we with this archetype we show most flexibility and we can smash anyone. But unless you're in that position, and in most cases you will not be in that position, don't bring three of the same.
Yeah. No, I think that's some really good advice, and I can't agree more. There was one guy on the Patreon, the Tony Boy Tactics Discord, who was telling him about a duos event he went to with his friend, and his friend took Wreckers, and he was on Blades of Cain, and like because of that, like they were able to say, right, I'm always as Blades of Cain picking the ITD map because my friend is never going to play on on ITD as Wreckers, and it's a similar sort of mentality, right? Of like if you have like a limitation in your team, like that is quite hard to manage between two, but like if you have like two teams that are I can never play on ITD, and a third of your games will be ITD, then you're going to lose a third of your games. If that makes sense. So like, don't have Wreckers and Pathfinders, for example, on a map where you think that they're not going to be able to potentially operate. So yeah, that's pretty good. The final Patreon question is: how does competing in WTC compare to competing in the World Championships of Warhammer?
Uh,
Can you say that politically?
well, these are two very different events, but what these events share with each other is that they bring a huge global community together, and that is probably the best aspect of this game. That you go to an event in Europe, or in case of Atlanta, for us, halfway across the world, and you get to play against your friends from other countries. So this is definitely great. Um, when it comes to the differences, we need to consider that WTC is a different outfit than GW team that arranges the Atlanta event. So from organizational perspective, there will be certain differences, of course, and that's unavoidable. You would need to have one outfit that runs all the events globally for there to be unity. So that there will be people who like certain aspects more than at one event than the other. So there's that. The other thing is that element of a team event versus singles event. If you go to Atlanta, you'll get to play at an even more global event if you dare to say it that way, because there will be a lot more Americans from our standpoint. We don't get to play against them as often as we would probably like to. So hereby, I would like to invite the American teams back to WTC again next year.
Let's get three American
And
teams. I want to see three American teams at WTC next year.
three
East
American
Coast, Central,
teams,
West Coast. You guys can do it.
definitely. And an extra team from Canada as well. That would be
Canada
great.
can bring at least three
Uh,
teams. I know many good
at
Canadian
least
players.
three teams.
At least three.
Great.
Let's do
At
it.
least three. So that is definitely something that is great, and to an extent better when you look at Atlanta, but you get to play against players from our standpoint that we would not get to play against too often otherwise. What is definitely better looking at WTC is that you get um, both singles and a team event, and the atmosphere during that team event in Belgium is way different to the one during the singles event. You're not playing just for yourself. You're not playing to represent your skill set. You're playing as part of a bigger machinery during that event, and that is something that cannot be repeated or mirrored during WCW in Atlanta. So that's that. There are certain things that I enjoyed in both events, and there are certain things that I enjoyed more during one of these events. And let's leave it at that.
Yeah, so my couple of fill-ins is so the Australia quite a lot of the Australians went to both events, and I think a lot of them when they're making the decision between like do I spend a lot of money to go to World Championships of Warhammer or do I spend a lot of money going to Europe? A lot of them for the as you say that team event, that ethos, that culture, and where it's located as well. A lot of them spent the money to go to Europe, which you know like I'm not saying that as a European like I don't have any allegiance to Belgium, but like actually Mechlin is a lovely place, and it's really accessible. It's really safe. It's really beautiful. It's like it's got loads of social areas to go and hang out with. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like the main selling point of WCW in Atlanta is that it is everyone is there, right? Like you know South American like communities all come up and play. You get all of the North American guys there as well, and Europe, a lot of Europeans head over to the event, and we haven't had that penetration yet from like North America, South America to WTC yet, but like I hope it comes because I think people will turn up and they'll have an amazing time, and like I would love to see more teams there because it just adds to the vibe, like and you just have so much fun by doing it. And from an organisational perspective, you know we've said in the past there's criticisms of you know just the like terrain mats, formats, and that sort of stuff of world championships. And I think the staff there are a bit limited and on what they can deliver. And I'm hoping that continues to improve because it has been improving. But the global events team can probably you know put on the lessons from WTC and from the Warhammer events team in the UK as well. And I think they can pull it out right. Like they want it to be a pinnacle event. I think it has the potential to do so. They just need to do the work to make it happen, right? So I'm hopeful for it, like going forwards. Okay, that has covered off all of the Patreon questions. Also, I think we're pretty much nearing the end. Um, what I'll quickly do is just ask people if you've enjoyed this format, please consider liking, giving us a subscribe, and that sort of stuff because it'd be really useful. If you want to hear about more stuff more often ahead of time, you can join the Patreon, and for as little as a coffee a month, you can get access to everything early, right? So those are my quick sales pitches. We've got one more thing to do, which is going to be a tactical tip from Bart before we sign off. But as I've started now, as it's tradition, so I'm going to carry it on. That is a subscriber benefit, right? So if you're a subscriber, you can hang around, you get the tactical tip that Bart's got for you. But if you're not a subscriber, then you can go
So
now.
shall I go now? No, I'm kidding. I'm a subscriber. So
You subscribe with 2 accounts, maybe even 3. You know, like this is the level of commitment I need. I need people creating YouTube accounts, subscribing like bots, you know, like and farming the likes, just so we can try and get Killteam out there to as many people as possible. Because that's all it's about, right? It's just trying to spread it to as far and wide as you can.
Brian Slater, the first podcast host that will compare his guests to a bot.
So yeah, if you enjoyed that joke, you can hit the like button and you can subscribe button. No, joking. Right, anyway, so
Click it now,
yeah.
not for him. Click it for me.
Okay, so that's the end of the interview essentially. But before we sign off and head on out, Bart, do you have a tactical tip for our listeners all over the world?
Um, yeah, let's share this tactical tip of mine. When we play a game of Kill Team, you've got several avenues through which you can gain victory points, like kill up, crit up, and tack up. And you said it yourself, sometimes your opponents focus on 2 out of 3, or they will not pay as much attention to one of these. We both know that tack up is often one of those avenues of scoring victory points that people tend to focus on a bit more because they tend to have the primary op selected for that as well. And sometimes you end up in a situation where you see the game state and you say to yourself, oh shit, I'm not going to score my tac ops. I'm not going to score as much as I plan to score. And at that point, uh, sometimes rather than trying to sacrifice too much just to score your tac op, if you know that you can't reliably do it without giving away too much on one of the other two avenues, then don't try to do it. Instead, focus on how you can prevent your opponent from scoring their attack ops. So if you know to put it again in a more concise manner, if you know you cannot score your tac ops, focus on your opponent not scoring their tac ops as well, and try to reverse engineer it. If you think, oh, I can't score 6+3, I will probably score like 4+2. Then start thinking, how do I make my opponent scoring 3+2 so I come up with 1 point advantage? That is very important and often helps me get ahead in my games.
I think that is an amazing advice, and it is so timely with Approved Docs 2025 because um, for those who are reading into the new TAC ops and understand about new TAC ops, there is way more counterplay in the new TAC ops, right? So there's no plant beacons, for instance, where you can just score these points and there's nothing you can do about it, right? There's always a bit of to and fro where you can potentially work on denying your opponent their TAC ops, right? And I'm doing a little mini series at the moment where I'm basically going through each of the archetypes, talking about those, how to score it. And I'll finish that mini series with a episode on essentially how to deny tac ops and how to try and predict what your opponent is taking and then work your hardest to reduce it. Because what you highlighted there at the end is like games are won or lost probably by a few VP, right? Like in those high level games, it's not, you're not getting these huge swings, right? You're looking for that 1 or 2 VP here or there that's going to be the decider for you. Um, and I think often people look at, well, if I can just do this one more thing, I might be able to get one more VP on my tac op. And actually, is there an alternative there where it's, if I do this one more thing, can I deny my opponent 2 VP on their tac op? And that is worth more, right? Like particularly if you think they're running as a primary op. So I think that's fantastic advice. Like if you can't score your tac op, deny your opponents is a an epic tactical tip to finish on. But
And may I have one more question for you
yeah,
because I think you shared a bit of your plans for your future content. And on that note, would you share my opinion that looking at the new TAC Ops deck, there's so many that look like, okay, I'm gonna score 4 VP easily, but how do I get the fifth one?
yes.
And so I go through that deck and I look at this is a 4 VP tackle, this is a 4 VP tackle, and there's no easy equivalent that I could say, yeah, I can reliably score 6, regardless of my opponent, regardless of the kill team. I can just do it because my team does this or that. In most cases, I think that we're going to have more struggle trying to get to that fifth backup point, which I think overall is a good thing.
So yeah, and I now know this because I'm now recording my stats. I took my first ever game where I took my primary op as kill op the other day. And I've never done that before because I never thought it would be a scenario in which it is. But because of the way the new crit ops are, some of the crit ops you know that you're not going to get more than 3 points. And the way some of the attack ops are, you also know that you're unlikely to score more than, say, 4 points, right? And in that scenario, I was like, I actually think the most likely way that I'm going to be able to get 3 on my primary op is kill op. So there's way more decision making now going into this, and it's what the game's designed on. This edition is that asymmetrical win path, right? So it's like, okay, I think I can probably get this on I can get 4 easy on this tac op. I can risk it for a 5 on this one, and as you say, like getting that additional like pip of points to give you the extra VP as well is going to be much harder to do. So you really have to know your own tac ops. You have to have that full repertoire of knowledge, and I think equally important to that is knowing what your opponent's trying to do. I'm stealing all my Patreon sandwiches now, so I'm not going to get too far into it, but those videos will be coming out.
Sorry.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right though, right? It's like in this new edition, I think it's so critical and so important. And if people aren't thinking like that, then you're going to probably get 3 points in each. You'll get an easy 3 in crit, you'll get an easy 3 in kill, well, maybe an easy kill in 3, and you'll get an easy 3 tackle points, and you won't be getting beyond. And actually, Killteam Casuals did a great podcast on this, talking about the new approved ops, where I think they hit the nail on the head, where they said actually mastering it and getting those 5 and 6 points is going to require like a perfect game. Like you're not going to be able to do that if you make mistakes. And your opponent's going to be able to punish you way harder potentially in those VPs. So all of the VP is going to be reduced in the game, I think, as an average, is my gut feeling. And that means that every VP is more important. So back to your tactical tip. Like if you can deny your opponent 2 to rather than gain yourself 1, that could be the break point, right? Particularly if it's like if they're on that threshold, and maybe they're about to get 5. But you can force them to get 3. Well, now their primary op's gone down another 1, so you now have a 3 VP swing potentially, and that's way more impactful than you going from 3 to 4, right? So it's that mentality of, like, as I said, tracking throughout the game where I'm like, okay, where am I at? Where are my points at? Where's my opponent points at? What do I think is going to work? Is really useful. But this has been amazing. I appreciate you coming on. Congratulations again to leading the team, such a monumental success and second place at WTC. It was an absolute pleasure to be part of that and to see it happen. And hopefully we go from strength to strength into the next year. Is there anything that you want to, any shout outs you want to do, or anything you want to sign off on?
Well, thanks a lot to you. Thanks a lot for the invite. Thanks a lot to every single member of UK Squad 1 and 2 that came along with us to Belgium, and they added their own experience and a lot of value to what amounted to our success this year. So thanks a lot to all of those great people and great players. Shout out to the old ones, the greatest team on earth. I love you guys, and for all of you who stayed with us for this extremely lengthy duration of this podcast, I've got a special double goodbye.
Excellent stuff. All right, well, that is it from us. You'll be seeing Bart again soon, I'm sure, because I'm going to try my hardest to get him back on the channel. We're going to do some bit more information and deep diving, because we're trying to figure out the new meta, and we don't want to lie to you. So we're doing that in the background, and I'll try and get him back on to maybe do a tier list and that sort of stuff. So it won't be the last you see of our amazing Bart. And with all that said, I'll see you all next week.
Bye.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we have a Patreon where you can get exclusive access to all our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.